If you've been following Dark and Darker, you know that the last few months have been, well, rough. Legal drama, dwindling servers, and devs that didn't seem to understand what their community wanted. A community that stuck around but kept asking the same question: is this game actually going somewhere? But Season 7 just dropped and something feels, well, different. The game that was barely surviving has just tripled its daily player base with this latest update. And maybe, just maybe, saved itself. First, let's talk about what's actually new. It's an entire new campaign called the Blue Maelstrom. This isn't just a new map variation, it's a ship graveyard, open waters, a completely different environment that breaks away from the stone dungeons that this game has had in its past. It also added dozens of different monsters and 2 whole new bosses. But here's what actually matters. This feels like the first time that Dark and Darker is expanding its world instead of just tweaking its systems. And they didn't just stop it there. Dozens of new items, a hand cannon, a cutlass, new armor sets that look pretty drippy if you ask me. For a game that's felt content starved for a while, this is the first time it feels like there's genuinely more to discover. However, the real game changer is the new mode, Squires to Riches. Here's the pitch. Everyone starts off with only their trash Squire gear. You'll drop into a random dungeon with a battle royale circle closing in, and there are limited portals, so you know not everyone's getting out. Now, I'll admit, when I first read this, I thought, great, another gimmick mode that'll be dead in 2 weeks. But then I played it, and I realized this solves one of Dark and Darker's biggest problems. The core game had always had this issue. If you're not a very good player and couldn't get good gear in a normal PvP mode, because everyone outgears and destroys you, you're basically getting destroyed by players in full kits while you're running around with a rusty sword, especially if you have gear fear. Squires to Riches, however, it feels like pure skill expression. No gear advantage. No, I lost because he had better loot than me. And most importantly, no gear fear. The person who extracts is the person who made better decisions in that 15 to 20 minute time window. I think what's happening here is that Dark and Darker finally has a mode which acts as the middle ground between newer players who play adventure mode and veteran players who play high roller. A mode where streamers can jump in without spending 3 hours gearing up first, where every match feels competitive instead of a roll of the dice. This is massive, simply massive, for newer and more inexperienced players who are looking to learn but can't compete with the high rollers. Then there's the Faustian Bargain. It's an experimental concept where if you die in the dungeon, you're given a chance to respawn and play as a mob to fight anyone that comes to your way. If you're the type that's spiteful, you could hit right over to where you initially died and try to murk the guy that killed you in the first place, making it a lose-lose situation for the both of you. Honestly, I'm not really sure about this one. If you manage to kill a couple of guys with your skills, only to get hunted down throughout the map because of it, it kinda seems like they're trying to punish you for playing well and defeating your enemies. But if I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt, I'd assume that maybe it's to let players learn the attacks of the mobs that you end up possessing. But otherwise, I think this mechanic is fun, but doesn't add anything of value to the game. Oh yeah, if you enjoy watching me cover the ongoing journey of Dark and Darker and other interesting games, be sure to subscribe and let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the future. But yeah, back to the update. Now, let's talk about the changes that nobody is gonna clip for YouTube, but that actually matters for the game's long-term health. Over 50 perk and skill changes, specifically targeting the niche and often underutilized abilities. For months, Dark and Darker has had a meta problem. Certain builds dominated. At one point, a commenter even mentioned that they were just seeing barbarians one-tapping in every game. And if you weren't running the optimized setup, you were just handicapping yourself. But I can see that this update is an effort to change that. And even though it seems like it won't completely flip the meta on its head, changes like these are going in the right direction, at least in my opinion. They buff the weird perks, the niche skills, the builds that theoretically could work, but were just slightly too weak to really justify. However, what this represents is that the developers are acknowledging that build diversity isn't just nice to have, it's essential to keep the game fresh without completely breaking certain classes. I hope to see that the devs keep this up and give follow-up updates to make sure that certain classes aren't completely broken. Then there's the change that seems small but is actually huge: a unified adventure rank. Before, your rank was separate for solo, duo, and trio. Your friend logs off? Cool, now you're grinding a different bracket from scratch. It was kinda redundant back then, having to grind out 3 different rank leagues depending on how many friends you had playing. But now, your progression carries across all party sizes. Solo in the morning, duo at lunch, trio at night, it doesn't matter. They all contribute to your high roller points, making rewards more accessible and incentivizing players to continue forward to gain them. They also added repeatable daily and weekly quests, a new woodcutting feature, guard mechanics for all weapons without a secondary attack, riposte for rapier, and an improved dungeon selection UI. These additions aren't flashy, and probably won't be given that much attention aside from the rapier riposte. But this kind of quality of life polish is what separates games that survive from games that thrive. Another thing they're doing is they're starting the season with a 2-week solo self-found event, which is based on the positive reception that they got from doing it last season. This means no marketplace. Everything you use, you found yourself. This is the kind of double down that I love seeing from SDF. They're making a statement on what kind of game Dark and Darker wants to be. Not a trading sim where the richest players are the ones who work the market. Not an economy game where wealth compounds and new players can't catch up. This is an extraction game where loot feels earned, where every piece of gear has a story to it, where the thrill comes from the dungeon, not buying low and selling high on the marketplace. So is Dark and Darker back? Fuck yeah, it's back. But more than that, it finally feels like it has direction. With this, the devs hopefully learned that this is the kind of update that people want to see. New content that expands the world, a mode that solves the gear gap problem, experimental mechanics that take risks, build diversity that fights stagnation, quality of life that makes the game look and feel more polished, and to wrap it up, an anti-cheat that protects this experience. For the first time since all the controversy, it doesn't feel like the game's trying to survive. It feels like it's thriving. But yeah, we'll see in a few months how this turns out.